Welcome to The Secret Life of Mothers. My name is Maggie Gordon-Walker, and I'm the founder and director of Mothers Uncovered. Join us as we explore and share the incredible stories of mothers when life has thrown at them challenge and, in some cases, trauma. Discover how the skills we learn in matrescence, which means becoming a mother, can teach us about more than motherhood. They teach us also about unconditional love, resilience, and acceptance. I'm joined today by Hannah Turlington. Hannah is an artist, writer, and creative practitioner living and working in North Yorkshire. Her work explores her own lived experiences, which creates opportunities for the viewer to share their own narratives. She runs community-based projects that focus on connecting people with their creativity, alongside running skills-specific workshops from a shared studio space in Malton, where she is also a director of AHH CIC. Hannah, welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Maggie.
It's great to have you on. We'll come on to AHH CIC later.
Yeah.
But let's start with some... Oh, sorry, what was that?
Bit of a mouthful, isn't it? Yeah.
It certainly was. So was saying shared studio space, skills specific, lots of S's all at once.
Yeah.
So let's start with some general questions about you and your background. So you mentioned you're based in North Yorkshire. Is this the same area as you grew up in?
Yep. So I've lived in North Yorkshire, I suppose, all my life. And then when I trained as a teacher initially, and after I left university, I kind of just put a bit of a pin in a map and thought, oh, I'm going to go and live there. So I ended up living in Grantham down in Lincolnshire after I qualified, which was 2000, yeah, until 2010 when moved back up to North Yorkshire. So yeah.
It's clearly you're happy in that area. That is your actual and spiritual home.
Yes, but yeah, potentially. I think that home is where you are with the people. It's about the people and about the connections you make. I know it sounds a bit trite, but I think that is that's what I've as I've got older. Those are the things that I kind of recognise to be really important. So yeah, and also Lincolnshire's got some lovely things, but it is very flat, So yeah, so that's one of the things, and North Yorkshire isn't, but yeah.
You've got the dales, hills and dales for sure.
Yeah.
So Hannah, what would we need to know about you to understand how you would describe yourself as a mother?
Oh gosh. So for me, I think that I train, like I said before, I trained as a teacher, and I kind of fell into that because I didn't know what else to do. I'd done an archaeology degree, and I really didn't know what to do with that. So I went to do a teacher training, and it just seemed that I was just kind of going through what people sort of expected. And when I met my husband, which was a long time ago, we've been married 23 and a half years now, and we got married after 13 months of like going out with each other. So I was 23 when we got married, and at the time, when we hadn't really kind of had the conversation about having children, but and then some friends of ours at the time started trying for children. We thought, we better start. And there's a lot of sort of, without knowing it, there's a lot of kind of social conditioning that happens for couples and for women, and there's a lot of sort of expectations that you're bound with. So we started trying for children, and it didn't happen. And we had lots of exploratory things, investigations, and tried Clomid and things, and it still didn't happen. So we decided to pursue adoption. So that's how we became parents. So I think that how I am as a mother is I kind of, because all through my teaching career, I worked with young people with really complex needs. I've worked with lots of people, young people with neurodiversity, and I've worked in different kinds of provisions. So, and I've learned a lot from the people that I've worked with, and learned a lot from the children that I've worked with. And so I don't know. I think because of that, I can be quite anxious at times, and I worry. I am a worrier as a parent, I think, really. But yeah, it's really difficult. I think because they've got such, there was the infertility, and there was my role as a teacher. I think that kind of does really impact the way that you are as a parent, really. But I knew that I wanted to be a very loving parent and not have a house where there was any sort of shouting or arguing. And I knew about that sort of, that understanding, and I was really clear that I would always maintain a relationship with them. And I was very clear with myself and my husband, that when they are at their worst, that's when they need you to love them the most. So that is the kind of thing. So even now my children are teenagers and they're tricky, I always tell them that I love them, regardless whether they want to hear it or not. So yes, very long-winded answer to quite a very simple question, Maggie, but yes. Yeah.
It's true though, yeah, that kind of cocoon of love, because even if they don't want to hear it, there's that security for them knowing it's there and it's unconditional.
Yeah.
I mean, I think every parent worries. It doesn't matter if you're a biological or adopted mother, you're going to be worried about your children. So yeah. It's just mammoth for sure.
Yeah.
So well, let's stick then with your experiences as a mother of adopted children, because when we first chatted, you said sometimes you felt left out of conversations when your children were small. I think you told me a story about sitting by a ball pool in a soft play place. Would you like to share some of that?
So when we first got our son, so we were matched. I don't know if people know about the process, but you have to be approved.
It'd be interesting for people to hear, even if they do. So I suspect a lot of people don't.
You have to, so once you decide, you then have to apply. I mean, I don't know if it's different now, but this is how it was. And we're looking, nearly 17, 18 years ago when we first started this, because how old my son is 18, so maybe 19 years ago when we first started this process, you had to have a visit from a social worker, and they had to decide whether you were going to be appropriate. So it was all very invasive. Then there was a series of interviews by social workers. They had to interview people that you knew. They asked you questions about your relationship, about your sex life, about all of these things. Obviously, they checked the safety things, whether you knew whether to have socket covers on your electrical equipment, etc. But it was very sort of invasive. But that was the process. We didn't sort of question it. And then you go through to the approval panel, and then it's the waiting game, and you wait for to be matched with a baby, a child, however old. You set your parameters. It's almost like a selection process. It's like having a selection box. Now, if you have a child, would you want them with this? How would you feel if they had this? How would you feel if they had that? And there's a lot of kind of like guilt attached to that, because I was working within a special school at the time, and I was thinking, oh gosh, how would I cope with a child with complex needs? How would have I got the ability to kind of cope with that in my own life, since I work with children like that every day. So there was those questions to have. And then you just wait then for matching. But I think one of the things which kind of comes up later in life, which I'll talk about, is that the conversation that we had with the social worker at the time was that these children there's going to be challenges with them.
Yeah.
And you talk about attachment and everyone thinks, oh, well, they're going to have attachment issues. Okay. And you expect that to kind of manifest straight away. But there was a strong sense that we got that we had to try and fix these children. That was our job.
Right.
And I don't remember at the time having any conversations about how we were going to deal with our own grief, because it's called disenfranchised grief, isn't it, when you're grieving for something that you've never had? So the grief of not having your own biological child. And for me, it stuck with me, that sort of grief of not being able to have my own children, because I felt that I had not done my biological destiny, which is, bear my own children, not being able to get pregnant. And there was a lot of sort of guilt with that. So I think that when we got our son, that loneliness was compounded with the way that I felt. So, and you mentioned about the ball pool. So I did the right thing, and around at the time there was show start groups. So we joined the show start groups. We went to the jingle jangle music thing, or the messy play, and all of those things. And we'd go to the fun farm, and I walked in, and he was in the ball pool and I was sat on the edge, and all these mums were just sat there talking, and I had nothing to contribute. I didn't feel I had anything to bring to the party. They just kind of, they ignored me, or I felt that they did, but I didn't know what to say. They were talking about night feeding, they were talking about weaning, they were talking about, all of these things. And I thought, I've got no point of reference here. I felt so out of water, and that kind of really compounded it. And for a long time, I never told people that my children were adopted, because I felt that people were judging me.
How old was your son when he came into your life?
It was just about 13 months old.
13 months. So I guess, that first year you didn't have knowledge of.
Yeah, no, absolutely no point of reference at all in terms of that. So it's like you're going in, you're handed this little human that's got his own stories already that he's carrying with him, and you know nothing about those stories, and you can't even begin to understand those stories until they're a lot older, and then the stories kind of come out, So that's the sort of difficulty. And I think that a lot of that, that loneliness, was not to do with other people. I mean, I'd said before that you could play, when we spoke before about, you could play bingo with people. Oh, aren't you good? When you said to people, I could never do that. Could you not have any of your own? Did you not have IVF? Oh, and all of these things that you kind of just expected. So actually, rather than hear those kind of platitudes, or those kind of those things that I was so tired of hearing, I just didn't say anything. And that probably, and I know now that inability to be vulnerable and to share kind of reduced my ability to kind of make connections with people. So I think, I think as you get older, you kind of understand that, and that really impacts on the work that I do now as an artist, and as
I'm sure, must do. Yeah, you also mentioned, so you felt excluded from those conversations. You also said you felt excluded from those who weren't able to have biological children but decided not to adopt because they also saw you weren't part of their camp because you had a child.
Yeah,
So
and this is the thing, isn't it? You know, it's very, you know, there's a lot now in the you know, on Instagram or social media, and but you know, people's stories who are childless not by choice, and there's a kind of understanding there. Whereas people who have adopted, well, what they're going on about? They've got a child, and it's almost like that. You're not allowed to say, yeah, but I'm actually still really sad and really grieving the fact that I don't, you know, at times when you know it comes back, because grief never goes, it just lies dormant, doesn't it? You know, so there's kind of recurring themes come back every now and then, and it's just that, yeah, you never had children, Hannah, you know.
yeah,
And that's the thing, but you've still got children, so that's really difficult to kind of understand. You know, I mean, I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't swap it, because I love my children to bits. You know, they are ultimately, you know, my favorite people, even when they're not doing my favorite things. You know, but yeah.
yeah. It's true. People are very quick to judge, you know, the grief. You know, I would say the grief of someone who maybe lost a child to miscarriage or in stillbirth, but have other children. Oh, well, you've got other children. It's just like, but they've lost a child. You know, it's just until
It's that
you
loss,
can actually be in that person's shoes, you can't make comments. Was there a group that you found of other adoptive parents that was able to support you, or was that
we've got
not
some,
something?
yeah, I mean, through the because we had to go to adoption classes, where you had to go to training, and we met a couple through there, and we lived in the same village as them for a while, and they've got 2 children through adoption. One of them is the same age as our oldest. So you know, there's that sort of, we're still in touch with them, not as much as we were, because we're in a different part of the country, but we know that they're there, you know. So that made a big difference. But again, you know, regardless whether you know you've adopted children or you've had your own biological children, people's parenting styles are different. And we met other people of adopted children, and we'd be like, oh gosh, that's strange parenting, you know. And it's just, you find your own people, don't you? You find, yeah.
Yes, exactly. And you find as well, you know, your child might be really, really good friends with someone and you don't get on with the parents, or conversely, you get on with the parents and the child, you know, doesn't want to play with that person's child. So it's a kind
That's
of awkward
difficult,
mess. You
yeah.
never get everybody usually all liking each other.
Yeah.
Um, but obviously, you know, if he was 13 months, there were many things that you had to parent him through, like, you know, toilet training, sleeping in his own bed for the first, all of those stuff, all those things you went through, you know, and that didn't
Yeah.
matter whether he was biologically yours or
Yeah.
not. You
Still,
still had those experiences.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it must have put quite a strain, I would imagine, on your relationship with your husband, that whole journey. But you're still
Yeah.
together, so you weathered it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, not going to lie, it's hard work. And I don't think at the time we'd maybe truly reconciled with it, because we went straight, the process then just seemed to go really quickly, even, and we got matched quite quickly as well with
How long did it take to be matched?
oh, did we? I think we got approved in the December and we got matched in the April. So that's really quite quick. So our friends, they were maybe another year after us, they got approved before us. So we were like, oh no, how come they've got approved before us? Oh no. But then they didn't, they got matched probably a year after us. But yeah, so it's just difficult. So that was quite a quick time scale. And I think that during lockdown, that was quite a difficult time. I was still going to work, because I was working in a special school, alternative provision at the time, and so I had to go to work. My husband was at home, but the kind of wheels fell off between us. Not for any reason, but we went to counselling, and we talked a lot about the children, about our relationship, and about that grief of not having our own children. So it took a long time, for that conversation to kind of happen, because once you're in it, you're in it. There's no sort of, there's not the 9 months, there was the 5 months of waiting to get married, but then there was only like a matter of 10 weeks or something between finding out and then getting, yeah. So
is that about the right? Would that be the case for everybody, do you think, or do
I
you
don't
not know?
I can't speak for
Okay.
anybody else, but that's the thing. So there's, we were just in it and trying our best, doing the best that we could possibly do with the information that we had. And you'd think, people say, oh, you'd be great you're a teacher. Yeah, but these children, they come into the class and they go home at the end of the day, don't they? So yes, it can kind of understand child development and those things, but I think that because you're working with, you've got children that you don't know their full history, they share with it, but you don't know the full impact of what their own early life experiences have on the way that it presents. So you're kind of walking on eggshells a lot, and you're thinking, second guessing yourself, have we done the right thing? Is that the right thing? So there's a lot of kind of stress building up, and after all of those years and that stress sort of building up, and not necessarily saying, oh look, I'm not sure about this. Are we doing the right thing? Have we, are we dealing with this right? Do you think it's going to have an impact on them? So I think that there's that period of counselling that we had to kind of have those conversations around the grief of not having their own children, and Dominic saying, my husband saying to me that don't blame me, or we don't blame each other for not being able to have children. Yeah. I think that, and we were only quite young when we got married. I was 23, he was 21. So I think that as you get older, we sort of grew up together, and we needed to have those grown-up conversations. So I think that's what counselling kind of made us do, really. So yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah difficult conversations definitely to have had, but really a real credit to you both that you managed to have them and managed to not fall into blaming, and see the bigger picture of raising not just your son, but then your daughter came a year after.
Not long after. Yes. Yes.
And they're not from the same.
No.
It's different background.
They came from the same foster parents. So because we were still in contact with the foster parents, my daughter visited one day, and when foster mum came to visit my son, and we just said, oh, we could have her. And then that was it. We sort of went through approval and matching on the same day. So it was a really unusual situation. So so there's only 15 months between them. So but it's fine. So
Do they get on with each other?
Well, they kind of keep the distance, but then they're teenagers at the moment, so they've got their own, haven't they? But when they get on, it's nice to see. They always got on when they were younger. So
and that'll be there for them as they get older, because you and your husband are their parents, so they have that in common. So they'll always have that. So yes, you taught for 30 years, you said, and then you moved to being a freelance arts practitioner. So you were already doing your, is it what sort of art is it you do?
Oh gosh, now there's a really difficult question. So I did a lot. So I started when I rediscovered my art practice, I was doing a lot of printmaking, a lot of lino printing. So I did a lot of that. And then in lockdown it changed. So I started working on, I suppose, working on myself really, and kind of researching around identity and conformity, because I realized at that point, you know, I had been conforming all of my life and being a people pleaser. So my work started, it was quite ugly and messy, so there was a lot of mixed media and things like that, and then I kind of settled down, and there's a lot of stitch, and I write as part of my work as well. So writing is very integral to my work. So now my work is informed by my writing, or I start a piece of work and then I kind of understand what it's about. So my work is, the kind of posh term would be autoethnographical. So it's about my own lived experiences, like you said in my bio, really. Yeah.
And then so you decided to take the leap from stopping teaching
Yes,
to doing
sorry,
that
went off on a tangent, like you
full
said.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd got to a point where I knew that something wasn't right, and I think my husband said to you, if you don't stop teaching, you'll be dead in 2 years. That's very dramatic. I did say to him,
That
that's
is
very
dramatic.
Yeah, but what he recognised was that it took a while to get me back during the holidays. So he got me back in the holidays, and then when I was at work, he didn't, you know, obviously I was here, but you know, my head was somewhere else. And because of the work that I was doing, it was very intense. And and I kind of did this, I kind of tried to mend everybody else. And I got to a point where I could no longer mend anybody else, and I had to mend myself. And I don't, that's not mean to sound arrogant or egotistical or anything like that, but I knew I had sort of work to do. But it was just the right time. It wasn't the right financial time, so don't be under any illusion that I built up a whole load of savings or anything. Oh no, not at all. But I just needed something different in my life, and you know, I felt that I'd done my time, and it was time. Yeah, it was time to do something else. So yeah, I did take that leap. Sometimes I think that was quite a foolish thing to do, but then on other days it's good.
It sounds like, as you say, it was out of necessity, in that it just wasn't, you know, affecting your own mental health, which is really sad when we think about it, because the work you were doing was so vital. And yet, is it because there's not enough resources put into that line of work? Is it the hours too long? I'm just interested to know why.
No, it was purely just something that I felt I needed to do, because I've been doing my art on the side for the past 10 years, so or 12 years, and I just needed, it was the right thing for me to do at the time, to kind of explore and to see if that having a freelance kind of creative practitioner lifestyle was something that was going to be better for me. But I still found that as I go through, as I kind of develop, you know, I'm only, you know, it'll be 3 years in December that I left teaching. I'm kind of really understanding how my years in as a teacher has really impacted on the work that I do now, and my ability to talk to people and to kind of build relationships with people, and that understanding of people as well. So yeah, I think I was a bit like, oh God, I've just been a teacher, I've got nothing to bring to the art world. Who do I think I'm kidding? but actually, you know, it was teaching is not just about teaching. It's fundamentally about relationships and about being an advocate for people who have not had those experiences or the life chances that you've had. So it's using, kind of, if you want to say the word privilege, using your privilege to enable people to get aspirations, to build aspirations, to see that, you know, to enrich life or to just find a pathway through. So I've always been very solution focused. I worked with an educational psychologist once, and that was his key thing. He said, yes, solution focused. So I use that all the time, even now. And so we're going to be solution focused about this. Like, what are we? Yeah, rather than thinking about what are all the negatives, we just need to think about how we're going to get through this. That's what I tried to do at home as well with the children, you know, and just in every bit of my life. Sometimes it fails, and I can be quite, you know, you want a bit of a pity party, don't you? But ultimately, yeah. Have I gone off on a tangent? Sorry.
That's okay. Motherhood is always tangents. So you have this shared space in Malton, and you're director of AHH. What does that stand
What
for?
does it mean? Who knows what it means? Like, yeah, so I'm a co-director. There's 3 of us, soon to be 4 directors.
Okay.
So it's the AHH stands for Art Happens Here. So it's we occupy our North Yorkshire Council building in the centre of Malton. It used to be citizens advice. So there's individual studio space, and then there's a couple of big community rooms really that we're just developing to rent out to community groups and to other training providers and things like that. So from there we run artist talks, we have artist residencies. I run myself and the other directors, we run workshops. So yeah, we're working with the local authority to North Yorkshire to see what other impact we can have within the community. So kind of bring some arts education and bring art alive, you know, like so I set up a group. So when I finished teaching, I'd already spoken to the director of the Helmsley Arts Centre, Natasha, and I said, from January, can I run a group? And I did it voluntarily, and it's still sort of it ran for 2.5 years as a weekly sort of craft group. I've just changed it to be project focused. But so yes, we're hoping to set that up in Malton as well, because I really understand the impact that creativity has on mental health and well-being. And I know for a fact, based on my own experiences, especially of lino printing, because it's very, I don't know if you've ever done them, Maggie, but it's very
I have not. Talk me through it, lino printing.
So it's the process of carving into a linoleum block, or you can get this soft cut vinyl and making an image and then print and rolling ink onto it and then pressing paper, and then there you have your image. So it is very process led. So you choose what you want to draw, you draw it, you transfer it, you carve the block, you then print it. So I will have racked up 10,000 hours doing that. But at the time in my life, there was lots of other sort of challenges within the wider sort of family dynamic, and I felt that lino printing kind of saved me, I think, really. So I know that my own creative practice has saved me. So therefore, I understand the importance that creativity has on other people, has on people. So I've run so at AHH we also run we've worked in partnership with Carers Plus Yorkshire and run creativity for wellbeing sessions, and got some small grant funding from North Yorkshire Council. So yeah, I think that's as in terms of what AHH does, being a community interest company, it is not just about providing space for artists, but it's about providing an offer, a really good, effective offer for the community that has the potential to have a real impact on people, you know, and you've got to kind of come at it from a, you know, if you're passionate about doing things like that, then I think that's what's most important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to tell me. In Mothers Uncovered, my group, that's what we do. We use arts to help people process their experiences, validate themselves as a person, and, you know, their own experiences, and be there to show other people this is me, this is my life, this is my experience. And it's hugely beneficial, and I think often opens people up. If they're doing some art, you know, the conversations can start to emerge because they've released a block within them, and they don't feel they have to pretend anymore to be okay.
Yeah, I was running a workshop this morning. It's part of a 6-week block I'm running. So I was trying to explain the process of making art and why, you know, it's just about the space that I hold for people, regardless whether it's a printmaking workshop or we're doing like a project-based workshop, such as the one I'm doing at the moment. Loneliness is not a dirty word. That, you know, it's about providing that space where people feel safe to kind of open up. And I think that the creative process calms that busy part of your brain, so the other part of your brain is free to kind of explore and communicate. I liken it to watching Murder, She Wrote, because I do honestly, I'm an avid fan. It's just, yeah, it's ridiculous. But I use that, it calms the busy part of my brain that tends to get a little bit anxious and worried, and obviously art does the same. But then I can have other really sort of good ideas. So some of my best ideas come up. I'm not really watching it, but I might be sat with my notebook or sat with my sketchbook, and yeah, it just kind of calms that part of the brain. But yeah, I think creativity has a massive impact on things like that. Yeah,
definitely does. So we like to think about growth sort of after, you know, rather than stress following something that's difficult in your life, or, you know, potentially traumatic. So of the, you know, the life-changing situation of you becoming a mother, an adoptive mother, and your work as a teacher, how have these life experiences changed you, do you think, and led you to that where you are now and the work that you do?
I think that my art has had a massive impact on the way that I am now and the conversations that I'm able to have. I certainly feel that I'm more open. I mean, I'm not going to bear all to anybody, you know, that's not what it's about. But I know that the first time I mentioned through my Instagram, I don't have a massive following, but, you know, that I had not had my own biological children, but I'd adopted them. I'd carved a uterus out of a lino block and printed a uterus onto a tea towel and then stamped the letters, "My barren womb does not define me," on this tea towel. And for me, that was a good way of doing it. So I think that my sort of openness, I'm very open with the children. We have very open conversations and not afraid to kind of tackle stuff. And we do a lot of things through humour. So when you talk about personal hygiene, or you're talking about, you know, relationships with people, or, you know, it's just kind of very matter of fact, and not being all you know, I suppose British about it. But I think that when you're working with children in my teaching role who are very matter of fact, such as when you're working with children in alternative provision, or working with young people who are neurodiverse, you get used to that very kind of, you know, direct questioning. So and actually direct questioning is the best way to sort of do it. There's no nuances, there's no sort of pussyfooting around or anything. So I think for a long time, I think I kind of struggled with validation as to whether I was a real mum or not. And I think that I found my own self-validation through the work that I've done, because I've kind of accepted who I am.
What was the response to your Instagram post about the
Well, I
barren
think I
womb?
got the most likes I've ever got on Instagram.
Because people,
Yeah.
you know, authenticity is an overused word, but it's true.
Yeah.
When you see it, people respond to that. They know something
Yeah.
that's come from the
Yeah.
heart and the guts, and they respond to that.
Yeah, there were people who said, "Oh, that's really brave to talk about it," like people who knew me. And then there were people, "Oh, I'm so sorry." What are you sorry about? You know, I don't want your pity. I've not said, I've not said that because I want pity or your platitudes. I just can't. I just don't want that. It's like when I do pieces of work, and I'd mentioned to you before about when I did a body of work called Letters to My Teenage Son, and I wrote a very open letter to my son about his struggles and about how I felt and how I wanted to help him. And people who said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, it will, it will get better." But I just thought, I don't need you to kind of respond. It's about having space for other people to say, "Oh, it's not just me," or "It's not just my son." It's about creating space for people to kind of feel and to kind of connect with that. And there doesn't need to be a verbal response. I mean, if there is, it just kind of opens up a different kind of conversation. But when those conversations are happening because that person's connected with that piece of work. So you kind of know, but it doesn't. Yeah, I've gone off on a tangent again, Maggie. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. I like that. It's just you're not asking for people to sympathize or pity or any of that. You're just saying that this is who I am. And if you want, you show me who you are. It's just sort of being,
And if you don't
showing
want to
up and presenting yourself.
yeah.
Yeah. Yes, you mentioned that, mending others to mend yourself. Is that's how it feels to you? Is that, does it, when you run the workshops, that you're working with people helps with things that you've gone through as well?
Yeah. And I think at times, when I was teaching, I kind of mended others to avoid mending myself.
Right.
And there's that kind of avoidance, because if you can solve everybody else's problems, then you don't have to solve your own, do you? You can kind of put them to the back of your mind. But yeah, I think now, I think it's just about understanding that people come as they are, don't they? And it's just respecting people, and thinking you are who you are. And not everybody likes the workshops I do. And I used to get really offended but I just think now it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Everyone likes different people, don't they? And everybody feels connected to different people. And and I know the project I'm doing at the moment, not everybody's wanted to kind of step into and share their experiences of loneliness. It's not therapy. I'm not a therapist, but what I'm doing is I'm opening the space for people to kind of have those conversations with each other, so they're not feeling lonely, so they're not feeling isolated. Because I went to a networking meeting the other week, and specifically for North Yorkshire or any rural community, rural isolation is equivalent to smoking 14 cigarettes a day on your health. So yeah,
that is quite considerable.
it is, isn't it, when you think about that?
So your son was born in 2007.
Yeah.
So if you, obviously, as you said, you only had 10 weeks to sort of prepare it, but if you had carved a bit of time to write a letter to yourself, or maybe create a piece of art, to, advice to your future self, what would it be?
I would say, remember to take care of yourself, because if you are not in the best shape, you will not do the best job.
That's very true.
And yeah, and when you're a people pleaser, that's always what you do. Yeah. You
Yeah.
take care of others and you forget about yourself. So yeah, you have to take care of yourself. But also, yeah, that's what I would say.
And if there was a particular song, it's like Desert Island Disc. We don't have 8 songs, but if you had one particular song that you associated with yourself as a mother, what would it be?
So I was thinking about this, thinking about, songs that have meant something as my children have grown up, but I've always had a really varied music taste. So I think the songs that I used to sing my children to go to sleep, Janis Joplin, Mercedes Benz. And I remember we'd not long got my son, I think he was, and we'd gone up to Scotland in the car and he was crying, and then I just started singing Janis Joplin, Mercedes Benz, and it calmed him down. And that sort of neuroplasticity, where a neural pathway, and you're squeezing his hand at the same time. And I was very conscious that that's what I was doing. I was programming with that sort of sense of touch, and that song that would be something that was really soothing to him when he went to sleep. And I sang the same to my daughter. And then we brought in Judy Garland, Get Happy, as well. And then from Annie, Tomorrow, some of those.
Oh, nothing modern then, all old stuff.
And
yeah,
well, stuff and yes, yeah. So my children have been brought up on music, so music's really sort of integral to us. So if we're in the car, we might have all these things that I've done by the Killers or something, or we're Miles, what's his name, stargazing or something, different things. My daughter and I have a Mum and Blob playlist, and all those things. But if I'm thinking about songs that at times mean something to me, I have a track. I like a bit of Martha Wainwright, because she's quite, when I'm thinking about, oh God, really can't go on, or Frazee Ford, Done. And that's a very good song. I don't know if you've listened to it, to Frazee Ford, Done, but that kind of quite epitomizes things. But I've put my playlist on in the car and the children sing along to it. So they know. They love a bit of Joni Mitchell. Well, no, they don't love Joni Mitchell, but Joni Mitchell has been very formative in my sort of life, really, as well.
But Janice would be the one particular motherhood disc. That would be my first choice.
Yeah.
Great, Hannah. How can our listeners find you? What's your Instagram?
So my Instagram is Hannah Turlington Art, and then my website is hannahturlingtonart.com. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for talking to me today, Hannah. And many continued good wishes for you and your family and your exploration through art to help you and others.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me, Maggie.